Hello, everybody. Thank you very much for joining me today with the next episode, Learning from Expert. My name is Eugene Piddleman. I'm a real estate agent with Coldwell Banker Real Estate. And today, my guest is Brenda Posner with Langdon Title. Hi, Brenda. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for joining me today. Today, we have a very special item to discuss. It's a timeline. In detail, we're going to discuss the timeline on how the title company, when the title company comes into the real estate transaction, what exactly step-by-step title company does, and who the title company communicate with, all the way from the beginning till the closing table. And then Brenda promised to explain why is it so important that the title companies take charge at the closing table and what exactly happens. Again, Brenda, thank you so much for taking the time to join me, and the microphone is yours.
So, thank you so much for having me. So everyone, I'm Brenda Posner from Langdon Title. I'm the Executive Director of Sales. I actually run our continuing education school, so I love educating people. And I'm also a title closer. So what I really do is I oversee my deal from beginning to end. So it really fits in perfectly with this timeline discussion.
Okay, great. So again, let's say we have a real estate transaction. One person, the seller wants to sell the property, the buyer wants to buy the property. They negotiated the price, the contract of sale is out. At what point your company starts? At what point your company comes into the transaction?
So it depends on what type of deal it is. We'll come in if it's a commercial deal or a potentially very complicated deal, when the accepted offer is accepted, when the accepted offer is accepted, obviously, some attorneys will want us to start doing the due diligence searches. So this way, they get that back by the time their clients are potentially signing the contract. On a regular resale or new development purchase, normally the title is first ordered when the contract is fully executed.
Okay.
That being said, there are still some searches that potentially buyers or agents could do, that some of them are easy to do if people are in the 5 boroughs. If people are outside of the 5 boroughs, they're a little harder because there aren't state and city websites the same way. So there are certain things that people might want to do. I like the idea if someone is buying a potentially 3-family property, if they do a search just to make sure that that is a legal 3-family property. Now, I work with a lot of agents like you that are so knowledgeable that you'll start the due diligence process when taking a listing.
Right.
We'll check the legal use of the property. And there's a number of other things that we'll check upon someone like you taking a listing, so that you know that what you're advertising is correct.
Right. And I remember I've done this many times. So if I cannot find easily the property legal use, I would ask you, and you do your own, you use your own tools and provide that information. That's super important. Yes, even before we take the listing.
So, you have that initial process. Then the contract comes back and it's fully executed. And normally the attorney will order title at that point.
Mhm.
Some of the buyers and agents I work with will ask the attorney upon accepted offer to work with me. So we'll be connected. The attorney will order title from us. Now, it doesn't matter where it is in New York. We can do title anywhere, because what actually happens is we get the title order, we submit it to our third-party examiners that are all over New York. They do the searches, they gather all the information, they then send it to us. Now we're up to the next stage. We have all this information, potentially 50, 100, 200 pages, depending on how complicated the property is. Now it goes to our in-house readers.
Mhm.
And they actually will review all that documentation. and put it into a title report, into a report form, which will then be sent out to all the attorneys involved in the transaction for review.
Mhm.
At this point, it's up to really the seller's attorney to review and work with us to get us what we need to clear title.
Mhm.
What we do that I really, really appreciate is now all the parties have the title report.
Mhm.
Now we're going to wait for the seller's attorney to look at it and review it. It's a great sales attorney that's used to New York real estate. That's all they do. They're reviewing it right away. If it's somebody that's not as focused on just real estate, they might not look at it right away. Maybe not. Who knows? Regardless, what we do is we'll then have our clearance officers take another look at the title report, which is an extra step that most people don't do. Most title companies don't do this. Our in-house clearance people will review the title and will then send out a summary email saying, in order to close, to be clear to close, on the title side, these are the items that we need. It makes it much easier to move the process along by doing that.
Right. And we're talking about the regular type of items that you need, not just when there's a title issue or.
It will include the normal course of business things that we need.
Mhm.
For example, on a condominium, we'll need a common charge letter saying the common charges are paid up to date. So
Mhm.
it will include that. But any attorney familiar with real estate, and obviously our in-house people, know that that's something that's standard course of business. It will also include all the complicated issues will be kind of laid out in a list format. So as opposed to when we send out the title report, the report part of it might be 5 to 10 pages. This will be on one email simplifying what is
Right.
needed,
Okay.
which is really greatly appreciated by the clients and by myself as a title closer while I'm overseeing and following my deals to be able to really explain to the agents involved, the attorney involved, to the buyers or sellers involved on if anyone's checking with me to see what the status
Mhm.
of the transaction is. It's
Okay.
easy to look at that synopsis. So where was I? Let's see. We're at the gathering of all the information we need
Mhm.
from the sales attorney to be able to get our clear to close.
Mhm.
Once we receive all of those,
Mhm.
sometimes some of the necessary items will need an original, but we can get those at closing.
Mhm.
So we'll get scans of those documents to be able to review them,
Okay.
knowing that the attorney will be bringing it to the closing. So we're basically told that we have everything is needed that's needed. They have the original. They've sent us things that we don't need the originals for. Now on title, we're clear to close. Now we wait for the other parties. Lender has to be clear to close. Buyer and seller have to be ready to move. All good.
Okay.
Then they schedule the closing and we schedule a title closer to attend the closing.
Okay. And what happens at the closing? The fun part.
The fun part. New York is such a funny state because all the parties still attend. And I'm told in other states that doesn't happen the same way. So at a closing, let's say you have the title representative, title closer, buyers and sellers attorneys, along with their clients, potentially. Sometimes people sign a power of attorney or pre-sign, so the sellers might or might not be there.
Mhm.
And then you have the lender's representative. And then you might have the agents nowadays. So you have potentially a very full room.
Yes.
So at the closing, there's all these papers going around. Okay, so as a title closer, what I am making sure I'm collecting all the documents that I need.
Mhm.
I'm collecting the originals that I need. If I need copies of things, I'm verifying, all the parties' IDs to make sure they're really who they say they are.
So you collect every document from everybody at the closing table.
I collect all the documents that need to be recorded and all the documents that we need to be able to complete our clearance review.
Mhm.
So for example, there was an old mortgage still showing of record and the seller's attorney said, oh, we have that original satisfaction. They might they'll send us a scan of it so we can review it and make sure it's correct, but they'll actually bring that physical original document to us so we can record it.
Mhm.
So I'll collect the original documents that I need to either record or clear the closing. I'll have all my affidavits signed that I need.
Mhm.
Chances are I'll be the person notarizing everything.
Okay.
But in addition to that, what we always run for the day of closing is a title continuation and a tax search to make sure that nothing new popped up on title, no judgments or liens or anything popped up that day.
Mhm.
And we'll run the tax search again to make sure that no everything, see if any new payments were made or any new monies are owed,
Okay.
so that we can finalize all the numbers. So the numbers are pretty much solidified unless something shows up on one of those continuation searches.
Okay.
Once I have all the documentation I need and the other parties are satisfied that they have their documentation that they need, the lender's going to need certain things.
Mhm.
Buyers and sellers attorneys are doing final potential negotiations over any walkthrough issues. I'm not involved with that. Once I have everything I need and all the funds to be able to pay the title bill, and everyone says the closing is done,
Mhm.
then I hand the title policies out. The owner gets their policy,
Mhm.
the lender gets their policy. Now they're both insured and the closing is done, and I take the file back to the office and we'll process everything,
Mhm.
record all the original documents, the deed, the mortgage, power of attorneys, satisfactions, whatever is necessary.
I got you. And then you just said that the funds are transferred. Who's in charge of transferring the funds back and forth?
Well, so the funds are given different ways. So I'll have my title bill, buyer's, seller side, lender side. So sometimes I'm handed checks, sometimes there are wires involved.
Mhm. Is there one person at the closing table that's in charge of all the funds distribution?
Not really. I'm in charge of collecting what I need. Sellers
Okay.
obviously are in charge, sales attorneys in charge of collecting the funds that they need. But I
Okay.
will be receiving potentially checks or funds from buyers, sellers, and the lenders council. So
Okay.
from those three sides, I'll be getting different checks. Or if they wire, I'll be getting the wire confirmations, and then we're not officially closed until the wires hit all the parties and all the parties have confirmed receipt of the wires.
Right. Okay. Seems like a pretty straightforward. Uh, if you've never been there, actually. So,
It's
yeah.
straightforward some of the times, and other times, the better of a team and the more experienced real estate professionals you have, chances are the smoother your transaction.
Right. I see. So, and then you started with saying, but that certain things that the buyer and seller can do, in order to help the due diligence, the title search. So, what are the things that you couldn't suggest for either side to be
So
aware of? Yeah.
normally it's not the actual buyer or the seller. Normally
Mhm.
it's their agent representative that's doing this potential due diligence.
That's it.
So, as a listing agent, when you're a listing agent, you're checking the most recent deed of record. You're checking to see if just to see if the seller has any mortgages on their properties, to make sure that when you choose the purchase price with the sellers, they'll be receiving the funds that they're expecting, that you're pricing the property right. We'll also check, for many agents, we'll check the real estate taxes. You want to make sure that the real estate taxes are the full amount, not what the seller's paying, because the seller might have veterans exemptions, star
Right.
exemptions, senior exemptions, and so on. So we want to check the real estate tax to make sure what we have is the full amount. And then the buyer, when they buy the property, can then apply for whatever exemptions they're eligible for. So we're checking that for the seller's agent, so therefore it's being checked for the seller. Sometimes the other things we'll check so that this seller can get a jump start on it is to see if there are any open permits and violations.
Mhm.
So, because the best practice would be, at time of taking the listing, that the seller starts working on clearing those issues up to make the process smoother. And that way they have time to work on it. Like I said before, checking the legal use of the property. All seller's side. Buyer's side, you know, they don't usually need to do as much due diligence. Sometimes the buyers, what I find, they're concerned with their views. If someone is buying a property that is on a high floor, that has amazing views, they might look out the window and say, is that building right over there going to build up? And that's something we can check if we have particular exact addresses. We can't check all the way down through all of Manhattan, but we can check 1, 2, 3, you know, the surrounding properties, if given the addresses, to see what their potential for building up is. We can never guarantee that they're not going to get variances and be able to build higher, but we can check and see what's available right now. And that could give and has given clients a comfort level to be able to move ahead.
I see. Okay, there's a lot of agents. Is a lot of agents asking you to help before they take a listing to help you with research.
Yeah, I am doing that as I educate people more and more. We're doing it more and more, and I think it's a valuable tool for people to know that they can come to a title company themselves, that they can choose. Title insurance rates in New York are all state regulated. So knowing that you can choose the title person and title company you want to work with, it's really based on their experience, their level of knowledge, and their accessibility. You know, the buyers that I work directly with, the agents that I work directly with, know that they can come to me and ask any types of title related questions to do due diligence, but also to check on the status of the deal.
Right.
You know, and they understand then the value of title insurance, what it is, and how we can help.
And who's usually chooses when there is a deal going on? Who usually chooses the title company? Well, attorneys mostly, right?
It's normally the buyer's attorney that will choose the title company.
Right.
But
the buyer still can communicate with you directly in case they have questions. And also, even if you not in the deal, anyone can ask you to help with certain questions, right?
Yes, I get both. If I'm not involved in the deal, people will call me and say there is a title issue. What would you suggest can be done? How can we help? I'll ask for documentation to review.
Right.
And if I also do have a lot of agents connecting me directly to their buyers, or agents asking their attorneys to work directly with me, because that way they know that this way their buyer will have the accessibility of being able to contact me directly.
Right.
Where if I'm not connected that way, if they're using an attorney that, doesn't want any kind of connection between me and the buyer, it could be a different issue, but a lot of people feel comfortable to call me.
Okay. And inside the transaction, and usually when so many people involved, how many of these, like agents, buyers, sellers, attorneys, mortgage people, how many of these usually you communicate with directly once you're in the deal?
Oh, I'm talking to people all day long. Yeah, between all my educating of people, I'm getting emails and phone calls to ask for advice, assistance, review of issues, and to do some due diligence searches all the time. I have one, actually, somebody just emailed me about a townhouse in the city that I was looking up a little bit just before we started, and I'll continue afterwards.
I got you. Brenda, thank you so much. It was really, really interesting. It was fun. And that's exactly why we like to work with you. Educational, fun, and very, very professional. Again, guys, thank you so much, everybody, to joining us today for this video. And stay tuned for the next one because Brenda promised to go over some case studies where exactly what kind of issues were found and how she helped to handle them. Thank you, Brenda, again. Have a good day, everybody. Bye-bye.
Thank you for having me.